So at this point, your bowl is pretty much built. We will still be adding a rim. You'll see me do that in a future video. But in the meantime, let's address smoothing the bowl and how your bowl should look at this point. So as I unwrap the bowl, you can see I've got kind of a bumpy top level of the bowl so far. I will again fix that by adding a rim later in a future video. In the meantime, when it comes to the interior and how smooth it is, I've done a majority of smoothing already, but now I just need to baby it a little bit more, especially the sidewall. The base is fairly smooth. It's the sidewall that needs a little TLC, a little tender loving care. And you can do that with a damp sponge using the sponge I provided you recently. It's best that you kind of continue smoothing while bracing the bowl with your hand, the side wall. You want to hold the side part of the styrofoam bowl while you're smoothing the side wall. Your hand needs to offer that support. I would say stay away from using fingertips too much at this point. If you see a little minor issue, you can use, your thumb as I'm doing right now. But really you want to focus on sponging because, by now it's assumed you've done a lot of smoothing with your fingertips. And unfortunately, the downside is sometimes fingertips can cause dents or pits. And in a few minutes, I'm going to address that and fix some dents and pits. So keep using a clean part of the sponge. Keep rotating the sponge. Remember, you want to use a damp sponge, not a dripping wet sponge. And just move around that sidewall. Obviously, this is going to take time to smooth. And you can see the dents I'm referring to in the pits that have been previously caused as a result of smoothing with my fingertips. So let's talk about how to patch those. You're going to want to use a little bit of clay. Just take a teeny tiny amount, size of a marble maybe. And depending on the size of the dent, you might need 2 marbles worth or 1 marble's worth of clay. I've got a little shallow dent here. It's stubborn, but it's shallow nonetheless. And I'm just simply taking a small piece of clay, a flattened piece, and I'm patching over it. Remember, with air dry clay, you do not need to slip and score. That is the nice benefit of air dry clay. And I'm using the handle of my plastic fork to blend that away. You can use a popsicle stick too. And then I'm going over it immediately with my sponge to smooth and remove evidence of that clay I used to patch the dent. Now here I've got 2 larger, more stubborn dents, deeper. So I'm going to need to kind of focus in on that a little bit more. And when you've got a deep pit, as I do, you are going to want to slip and score. I know I said a minute ago you don't have to slip and score with air dry clay. For shallow dents, I don't recommend slipping and scoring. It's not necessary. You can, but it's not necessary. For deeper dents that are stubborn and obvious, you do want to slip and score. So I'm using a larger chunk of clay here, and I will officially slip and score it into place. And of course, we're using water in substitution of slip. You can make slip with your air dry clay, but I don't know if I gave you enough to do that, so I say fake it with water. And I'm just using my toothpick to crosshatch that chunk of clay, that flattened ball of clay, and a little bit of water. Remember, anytime you slip and score, you want to slip and score both areas. And so I'm just essentially filling that pit with some clay that I've now officially slipped and scored. Stay away from using your fingertips too much to blend, and spend more time blending with your popsicle stick or plastic fork handle, whatever works. So I'm just lightly blending that away, and then I will go over it with a damp sponge. I can do that right now, immediately after slipping and scoring, but it is best to wait to smooth after the clay is stiffened up for a few minutes. And, that can happen after 15, 20 minutes with this clay. So after you patch dents, I recommend kind of waiting and not doing anything right away to the clay. Purposely walk away from it for about 15 minutes, then go back to smoothing.